Socialists teaming up to bring their message to the heartland. Senator Bernie Sanders is hitting the campaign trail in Kansas with the new face of big government liberalism.
You know, we must have gotten off at the wrong stop because people told me that Kansas was a Republican state. Doesn't look like that today. We are going to come together to transform this country politically and economically.
We want to be a nation that allows improved and expanded Medicare for all. We are a nation that will not stop until every child is born with the opportunity to go to college or trade school free of cost.
Meanwhile, Senator Elizabeth Warren is pushing the left's new fake news narrative about jobs.
When people are working at minimum wage jobs that won't support them, or they're working 2, 3, or 4 jobs to try to pay the rent and keep food on the table, then simply saying the unemployment figures have gone down just doesn't get you there.
What she forgot to mention is that the Trump economy's booming.
Yes, it is.
And there are more jobs available than people to fill them.
Jeremy Waters doesn't look rich, does he? Has he been hitting up the classifieds lately, looking for work, hitting up Craigslist, posting his Indeed resume? No, he gets it. He absolutely gets it. They need to find somebody on that show that looks richer than Jeremy Waters, because he doesn't look rich. He doesn't look rich enough. He doesn't look like he's been golfing every single day of his entire life.
All right, Greg, let's start with Cortez teaming up with Bernie.
I love it.
I mean, this is a big threat to the Democrat establishment.
It's like you got the old communists, you got the new communists. It's like the Snoopy and Woodstock of socialism. Think about it. The greatest economic system known to mankind is the one that the Democratic Party is rejecting, despite evidence that it's worked to eliminate poverty and disease all over the world.
It hasn't even eliminated poverty and disease in this country. It hasn't even eliminated poverty and disease in this household, in this very room. I'm full of diseases.
Wherever it's introduced, and yet they pick the one that wherever it's introduced destroys countries: Venezuela, Cuba, USSR before it became Russia, even cities in California, San Francisco, because of big government.
Everyone else would say it's the income inequality created by Silicon Valley and capitalism.
It is now the nation's restroom. You can have a seat anywhere, no flushing needed. So I think go for it all the way. And also, I think they're a great team. They're like a buddy cop show. They're like a buddy cop socialist show.
They do look good together, I have to admit. Juan, socialists aren't very good at math. Let's just be honest. I mean, she wants free college, free housing, free health care. Who is going to pay for all this?
Oh, gee, I wonder. Maybe it's the same people who are paying for the Trump tax cut that blew up the deficit. You think that could be, Jesse?
The U.S. military budget is $700 billion. I don't think it should be that high, do you?
Mm-hmm.
No, I think I should have some of that money.
You should be in the military now.
Yeah, I could probably steal a lot if I made it to a high level. Fraud, corruption, I could be like them. Am I too old? I might be too old.
You're not too old, but if you want to make money, go to the military. Okay?
I don't think. Do you think Jesse? Do you think Jeremy Walters was ever in the military?
I don't know about that.
Jeremy Walters.
all funded by crumbs.
Oh, that's it. So in other words, it's okay when Trump blows up the deficit and spends a lot of money. But if you start taking care of us, the American people, and most Americans think we need some kind of Affordable Care Act. We should take care of people who have pre-existing
I thought
conditions.
we had an Affordable Care Act.
Who's trying to undo it?
Just wasn't
It's
affordable.
your side.
It was
It's your side.
the
It's very
Unaffordable Care
affordable.
Act.
By the way, Greg, we're not talking about communism. Is that what you said? Communism?
I will say they're communists, socialist communists. You call, tomato, tomato.
Well, I see. But what about the idea that we in the United States are a country that, in fact, puts in place taxes? We somewhat restrain unfettered capitalism because guess what? There's sometimes the need for a safety net.
Well, Bernie Sanders style socialism is communism. Let's not forget that he's the one who used to praise bread lines in South America as an example of how government is actually working for the people, as people are starving, standing in line, waiting for the little crumb, literally, that the government is going to give them. I love that Elizabeth Warren is trying to argue that people are trying to work 3 or 4 jobs just to earn a living, when Democrats and socialists in their party have made it impossible for regular, everyday Americans.
I have to disagree with Fuzzy Math's numbers there. I mean, she seems like a nice girl, but I'm gonna... What an ironic name, by the way. Fuzzy Math, if she's giving us incorrect information.
To make a living by implementing minimum wage laws, which have now turned places like McDonald's, where people get their first step in, into robotic institutions where you order from a machine rather than a teenager who can then go on and get a good job.
It's because of minimum wage laws that McDonald's is turning to artificial intelligence. That's the reason. It's because McDonald's is a struggling company. If they didn't implement these computer systems, I don't know what they would do.
They are also the same party who has implemented things like occupational licensing. You have to have a permit to be a child care specialist. You have to have a permit to pluck someone's eyebrows. They are the ones who make it impossible for people to actually go outside of the system and make the money that they want to make on their own. So in terms of regulation, Elizabeth Warren and the socialists are the ones who actually put workers down in this country and want to implement a socialist system that is bad for all of us. And by the way, this Medicare for All plan is not affordable, Juan. It's going to cost $32 trillion.
I see. And what did it cost?
I think the yellow hair slut, Denmark has it, Sweden, Canada, the UK, they seem to be able to afford it. This yellow hair slut, I think, again, her name is Fuzzy Math, and I just think it's indicative of what she's saying here.
What did it cost when they said, too big to fail? We better bail out Wall Street. I think at that point...
That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
That's exactly what we're talking about. You said it's too expensive to take care of Americans who are ill, and I don't think that's the case.
Nothing is free, and I want to take care of myself and my own family rather than everybody else.
Again, the yellow hair slut, she said that, she obviously picked herself up by her bootstraps. Her father was... a struggling dishwasher, much like yours truly, worked at various call centers as a telemarketer, and she had to create her own life because she had no money growing up. Fuzzy Math.
No, I do know, Juan, that we want eyebrow pluckers to be able to pluck without
by the way,
regulations.
Jesse, you obviously didn't get your eyebrows plucked. Those things are bushier than...
I know. We need definitely some pluckers on set. Molly, what do you think about Elizabeth Warren, though, trying not to get outflanked by Cortez? Now it's not just 2 jobs people are working. They're now working 4 jobs.
And soon it'll be 16 jobs that people are working, and that explains the low unemployment rate.
Right.
But I really do think Democrats have a problem. All the excitement that they have is on this left side, this left flank. And you're hearing about people wanting Medicare for all. Never mind that that's not going to actually happen. I mean, Vermont, California, Maryland all had to abandon their Medicare for all programs because they were too expensive. And so will they still retain that excitement when things that they're pushing for don't happen? They had the vote this week to abolish ICE, and that didn't happen. So I'm not sure how to maintain that excitement that's there on the base.
Why did that happen? I think it was Republicans pulled the bill.
Oh, because Democrats voted against
They voted present on the bill or against it. But the point being, it's not very popular on a national level. It's very popular in New York City maybe or Vermont. But are these the kind of messages that will actually pull nationally, or will they cause a lot of problems?
And you mentioned the crowd size, because it looks like a lot of people turned out for this, Greg, and we spoke yesterday about Biden running. I don't think Biden can turn out a crowd the way a Bernie Sanders could.
Well, it's tough because if you eliminate the big names or the wild cards or the charismatic people, they're versions of Trump. So you think about, like, Oprah's not going to run, Michelle Obama's not going to run, and Hillary, which I think would be the perfect rematch because I think that's a big story, but she probably won't. You're left with a remainders table at a drugstore. You know that discount table where you have like a travel shampoo and you have a deck of cards and you have a bottle of cough syrup that's past the expiration date.
Right at the checkout line.
Yeah, it's right at the checkout line, and it's like if you're drunk, you might buy something. That's the Democratic candidate. That's what they're going to have right now. And it's not. I don't think the reality is. I don't think you're going to see the candidate until 2019.
But I do think it's interesting that they are campaigning in deeply red states. Kansas was won by President Trump in 2016 by 20 points. However, as we have learned through special elections in the past year politically, you can't take any seat for granted, and every single vote counts. And let's not forget that a number of Bernie Sanders supporters then became Trump supporters. So they are targeting a certain sector of those voters, even in deep red districts, because they feel like you work at it, you can do it. Cortez is the one who won the election because her opponent wouldn't show up to the debates and wouldn't actually put in the work to win the election. So they're not taking it for granted.
Katie, let's celebrate this moment. We agree on something.
Oh my gosh. Agreement with Juan Williams.
We really do, because I think a lot, and I think Greg's in on this too, that a lot of the Bernie supporters on the far left actually are populist and very closely aligned with people who are Trump supporters on the far right. But I would say this, and to disagree with you, to keep our show going.
Of course.
I would say that if you look at something like the tax cut, the Trump tax cut, the idea was that was going to be the big Republican message for the midterms. It has become a dud. It doesn't work. And why doesn't it work? Because Americans say it hasn't raised their
Why
wages.
is Trump going for a
put
tax
more
cut
money in the
2.0 in the fall, Juan?
Yeah, because he's trying to fix it, Jesse.
No,
he
no,
realizes this thing is a dud, and
they're trying to cement it right on the eve of the midterm elections. That tells me they think it's working.
No, because the people, hang on a second, the people in Kansas that you saw Sanders and Octavia Cortez speaking to are people who are saying, you know what, this hasn't worked for us. We put some faith in Trump. They put faith, in fact, their former governor.
Those were all Trump supporters that showed up.
I think there are a lot of the populists.
One thing we need to point out, and this drove the president crazy when the tax cuts were being implemented, it wasn't just a tax cut, it was a tax cut and jobs plan. So you can talk all about how you want about the tax cuts, but the jobs portion of this has been really important and much of the time ignored. The economy is booming. There are more jobs now than we can actually fill due to a skills gap.
It's funny though,
it's all about jobs and the tax cuts.
We spent an entire week screaming about how an outside foreign power is taking over this country when actually the phone call is coming from inside the House. You have a party that's adopting policies of the history's worst disasters, and you have non-citizens who can now vote.
Can you believe that in San Francisco?
Which is an interesting thing, again, to
in
bring
your
up.
City.
In my city.
Your city.
I am ashamed of San Francisco. More about the poop problem than the non-citizens voting, because I like to walk without having to step in anything.
Molly?
But that really is the real lesson of liberal governance. I mean, San Francisco is a great city that has had so much. This is like the place where more money has been earned than anywhere else in the country. And what do they have to show for it? This horrible homeless problem.
Right.
And all of the money in the world isn't saving it. So there really is an issue where liberal governance is not attracting as much as conservative.
I wonder if we can turn the camera to San Francisco and see all the fabulously rich people who are dying to buy a place because it's so expensive.
No, I agree. No, you're right, Juan.
Absolutely.
You're right, Juan. Yeah. And the new mayor, admitted that there is a problem, and they asked what the solution is, and it was like, well, we're just going to talk to people. We're going to talk to people because that's going to get people off the streets and off doing drugs and whatnot.
But here's the thing that really, I think, supports your argument, which is that they spend, I think it's $37,000 on trying to deal with the homeless. But you and
homeless person.
Right. And you and I have argued about deinstitutionalization, which didn't come from the Democrats, by the way. But the homelessness problem and the problem of people with, post-traumatic stress syndrome, or somehow they're destabilized, somehow maybe mentally incapacitated, is
Contribute on the About screen of the channel by clicking on the PayPal button. Please remember to subscribe and hit the dislike button at the bottom of the page.